Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Warren C. Street Photography Podcast. So this is episode 11 and we're just plugging along like I wanted to at the pace. I wanted to basically deliver the podcast to you guys as we continue to talk about anything and everything related to street photography. Just as in the other podcasts, I want to break down what it's about as far as the things we'll cover in and around street photography. We'll generally start off with what's trending, and I'll discuss either something that's trending, something I think that should be trending. I'll discuss my views on it, whether I feel it should be trending or not, and whether and pretty much elicit you guys in every segment of the podcast for what your views are. Hit the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, of course, and if not, hit me on Instagram, and I'll make sure that's also in the comments, or I should say podcast description, so you guys can let me know what you think. But that's the trending part. I'll tend to pick something that kind of catches me off guard and hopefully get you guys thinking about that. Then we will go into the who you're repping section, where we'll talk about an artist that's out there doing work, how I feel about their work, discussing what I feel their work can do for me and better enhancing my street photography style and so forth. And if they have publications out there, I generally will have one of them, or at least be trying to get one of them, that I will discuss with everyone on the podcast. We will go from that to talking about gear, and generally gear specific to street photography use and what we as street photographers will like to use, or I think you might want to be looking at. It'll go from stuff about the gear itself, a specific gear, or how we use our gear. Again, I'll talk about how I feel about it, the pros and cons about what I feel about it and how I would use it and things like that, if I would even use it. And then we will finish off with a question I generally have been asking the community to kind of get you thinking about something I feel is worthy of thinking about as it centers around street photography. So we'll go ahead and get going on the first segment, which is trending. And over the past, I will say, 10 episodes, I've come up with a number of different things that I see out there trending and have discussed them and talked to you guys about them, and have gotten feedback here and there from different folks, which is great. But it got me to thinking about, for this episode, one of the things that I tend to do, like most YouTubers do, which is I influence sometimes, right? You can say, based on what I may discuss on my normal topics on street photography on my YouTube channel, and even in this podcast, I influence. And I see a lot of street photographers now, at least ones that are up and coming, trying to build a name for themselves, and also as they work on their name, work on their style, will utilize social media, YouTube, and things like that, content, we'll say avenues to show their work. But they will also do things to influence people too, as they build on their knowledge and build on their expertise. And I can honestly say I've gotten to a point where YouTube has become as big of a shopping experience, to get to know the product, to see somebody that's had it, to see somebody that's used it, get their pros and cons, and if it's be influenced by them, to see if I want a product or not. And again, I see that a lot happening with a lot of folks I follow on YouTube and on social media that are street photographers, that every once in a while, if not more frequently, they're influencing me on a product or something like that. And I myself have done it on my YouTube channel, to the point where I'm like, is it something that's a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I guess it really depends on your perspective and what you're looking to get out of all of it. For me, the positives are I get to experience something visually, virtually, if you will, without having to actually have experienced it myself. Hopefully the person that's influencing me is somebody I feel their work and their knowledge is valid enough from the time I've spent watching their content, if you will, perusing their images, perusing their video, whatever, however I'm getting that information and digesting it, that I can then say, you know, I feel comfortable or confident enough that this person can influence me on something that they're doing around street photography, whether it be gear, whether it be a style of shooting, whether it even be a topic to discuss like I do on this podcast around whether a person should use, you know, all the information on the back of their camera, or just go to a display that has nothing on it and shoot the image, and, you know enough about their camera to be able to make adjustments and go, instead of try to deal with all the information that most modern digital cameras spit at you that you may not necessarily care for or even need to capture a great image, right? So that, in a way, I just basically maybe try to influence everyone listening or watching this on YouTube to go about using their camera without really crowding their screen with all that digital information that the cameras show. So there's that, it's even a way of I feel of an enhanced search engine for you too, especially when it comes to something like YouTube. I can go there and look up information on cameras. I can go look up information on clothing, makeup, everything. Literally, I can look up information on fasting. So when it comes to influencing, I can use social media and things like YouTube and other platforms like that as an enhanced or advanced searching feature for me when I'm looking at finding out some information about something I'm interested in. So that to me is like the biggest benefit pro for the influencing factor of things now, especially when it comes to photography, street photography in particular. I've gained enough knowledge watching some of the people I follow on YouTube about London locations in certain Asian countries. It's impressive. Now, it doesn't quite, of course, give me the in-person physical feeling of being in China or being in Japan or being in Korea, all these different places, Bali. I mean, you have folks all over the place, Mexico, even watching our folks at Petapixel doing their stuff in Calgary. I'm not there, but I get a sense of what it's like, where if I was to be there, or go there, I should say, I have a sense of what's there and what I might want to go after and go shoot and be able to maximize my time. So in that way, again, like I said, it's kind of like an enhanced search engine, if you will, for finding out information, giving you a visual and virtual perspective. So those are the pros. The con to me is that sometimes it can be a little much. It can be a little much, even to the point where it's forced on you. So I personally look at my own channel for that particular aspect. I want to make sure if I am influencing on a product, that one is a product that I am actually going to use for my channel or for me doing the type of content creation I do when I go and do street photography, stuff like that. And that's because that's what the channel is about, right? If my channel was about cars, well, I'm not going to do influencing of products that aren't about cars. So in that way, it can be a little negative. I've seen folks on social media and on YouTube and platforms like that where they're influencing you on stuff that the channel is not even about. Or as I say, it's forced on you. I know that companies like YouTube and Instagram and all these guys, Meta, need to make their money, but the ads are ridiculous. And I gotta honestly say, I don't know which way folks lean toward, what in the US, what political party they wanted and what president they wanted. To me, you vote for who you want, that's going to basically fit your needs the best. And that's how that goes. That's how it's always been, as far as I've been voting for as long as I've been alive and been here in the US. But oh my God, the inundation on every social media platform with the political stuff was maddening this time. I was just in utter sheer stress over that. And that goes to, again, like I said, how the influencing can have a really not so great negative aspect to it, because of, like, if I'm going to go watch somebody's channel for street photography that I follow them, yet they're pitching me something that has nothing to do with street photography, or worse, they're pitching me something on a topic they have no experience on, or a product they have no experience on. Okay, that's a waste. So I try myself not to do that, and I commend folks when they call people out for it. So what do you guys think about influencing, and how influencing has trended so heavily to where it's a part of our daily, aspect in life. It's a function of living right now, that you're being heavily influenced when it comes to the style of photography that you may want to do, depending on your feed on these social things, what the persons that you follow are saying, and so forth. What are your pluses about it? What are your minuses about it? Do you agree with what I just said? Do you feel the same? Hit me in the comments again. Let me know. Hit me on the IG. Let me know what you guys think when it comes to influencing, and the way it has its hold on us, and how you see it affecting you when it comes to your street photography, whether it be from things you're learning about the genre, to the style of shooting you have, to even the gear that you use, maybe even the way you feel about certain things, like an episode that I had in the past where I talked about my moral dogmas. How much does outside influences affect you in those areas? And that'd be cool for me to know, because it does affect us, whether you think it is or not. Just, it is actually. So think about that. Let me know what you guys think. So on the next episode, again, and I'm glad I've made this an integral part of the podcast. I love the fact that I can shout out some artists out there who I think put out some fantastic work in giving us the opportunity and to be influenced by their work, and be able to gain from their experiences, and be able to learn from their style of shooting, and seeing how we can add it to our own and enhance our own style of shooting. And we are repping this session San Francisco, California, with photographer Alex Webb. So I'm going to go ahead and read a caption here from Mr. Alex Webb to give you an idea of what type of photographer he is, because he's still alive. He's still out there doing things. He says, "I only know how to approach a place by walking. For what does a street photographer do but walk and watch and wait and talk, and then watch and wait some more, trying to remain confident that the unexpected, the unknown, or the secret heart of the known awaits just around the corner." Alex Webb, caption Alex Webb, from Under a Grudging Sun. I think that's phenomenal. And I use that word a lot because that's my favorite word, but it is. I think that's a phenomenal way of putting it pretty much to the point. As street photographers, we do go out there with the anticipation that the street photography gods, if we go that far, are going to provide us an opportunity to capture an image that's super wow. As we say, keeper. I went out there and shot 100 photos and I got 2 keepers, so I'm excited. But I went out there and I shot and got the best image I've ever got in my life. The photography guys have blessed me with this image on the street, right? Because all we do is go out and we will wait. I know the affectionate term for it is fishing, where you find a location and you sit and you watch everything unfold in front of you, waiting for the opportunity for that decisive moment photo to come along, and then you capture it, and hopefully you got yourself a gem of a photo with a lot of interesting factors to it, or one main interesting factor to it that really separates it from everything else, right? And I think that's great the way he goes about and explains it that way. So I will provide in the description of the YouTube channel version of this podcast a link to his website, link to his Instagram, which he does do a lot of posting, which is fantastic. I do believe he does do workshops. You can check that on his website. And Mr. Webb has been very busy in his career. He has about 25 collaborated production or books with other artists. And the one I have actually, and this was another one where, like the last artist, I picked up a couple of books at the same time at my local bookstore. And I picked up Dislocations, and I'm going to hold this up right here. And Dislocations by Alex Webb, excuse me. This book pretty much personifies that statement. When you look at the images, even the cover, he is clearly out, sitting at a location where there's a lot of action in this, even in the book cover, and I'll hold this back up, where he's waiting for things to unfold in front of him, and he's taking some images. He takes a lot of color images, and he takes a lot of what I consider even kind of abstract style images as well. As I flipped through the book and went through it when I was going through the bunch of books that I had, he is big into lights and shadows. He's big into you shooting through glass, where you get, you know, the faded or distorted images. With this particular image on this page is one of the ones I like the most, and every time I open it up, I love how he shot through the pane glass window here. And let me make sure the light's on so you can see this well. And he got a really nice image here with folks outside on the other side of this window capturing stuff that's happening outside, and adding a nice kind of dimensional multi exposure type of shot, it looks like to me. Now these are a accumulation of images throughout his career at different locations, but pretty much in him capturing, like he said, sitting out there waiting for the unexpected to happen and take an image of it. So here's another one I'll show you in the book, and this book is a nice big book, and I like the quality of the paper they use. It's got a nice sheen to it, so you know it does reflect on the light a little, but it doesn't take away from the gorgeous detailed images in some cases, to where that's what he was wanting to show, to images that are a little out of focus. But he takes advantage of just what's out in the street, so he's hitting a lot of different little, we'll say, photographic aspects, you know, frame in the frame situations, like this one right here, where he took an image of a person that is on their bike and next to obviously a bridge, and one of the little decorative openings in the bridge, you have a person that's actually surfing, which is crazy, because when you see that, it looks so out of place. It doesn't look real to me, but it's real. And you know, he took this picture in Munich in 1991, and he's big on getting images that are unexpected. He sits definitely and waits for the unexpected to happen, the opportunities happen, and he snaps his image. And these images are phenomenal. I really like them. I really like the colors that are in here. You know, one thing I don't talk too much about is editing when it comes to street photography, because generally we don't want to over edit. We don't want to really pull away from what the image or the scene really look like color wise when we're doing our street photography. Of course, you can do whatever you want with your images, but his editing is pretty much, it looks pretty neutral. I don't really see a push toward overly contrasty or anything like that. I don't see a lot of black and white as I go through this book, but as I looked him up, I can't say that I saw something that jumped out right away and said that, you know, this particular photographer is big on shooting black and white. He definitely is taking advantage of the color. He's definitely taking advantage of the light and the shadows on his images so that he can show his subjects. He's definitely taking advantage of the opportunity to snap what happens in front of him to capture a really, really, really great images. This one right here, and I'll show you before we move on, is right here. If I do this right, you can actually see he snapped the image of the bird flying through the frame there, and what looks to be an alleyway the bird was flying into, which is kind of cool. And the bird is in the right spot where the light is on them. just above the shadows, adds a lot of layers and dimensions to the pictures based on his use of lights and shadows and the way the sun is hitting. Use of he shoots a lot through glass. He definitely likes to take advantage of juxtaposition type images and also frame within the frame images as well. So there we go, Mr. Alex Webb. Now, when I look at this, what do I learn from this? What do I gain from this? Again, he's another artist that is teaching me how to be patient. To get to a scene, one, he definitely is doing his research. I could tell, going to scenes where it's going to provide him with the best opportunity to capture some unexpected images. He likes taking a lot of images of people, but he definitely is, he's fishing. He's sitting and waiting. He's being patient. Again, I've started to do that more so I can hopefully capture more opportunities. I've started to listen to my triggers more so I can sit back and wait for that opportunity based on my triggers that tell me, hey, something or a style of image I like to take is about to happen because of that trigger that I hear, whether it's an engine from a motorcycle, whether it's a dog barking, whether I hear a loud people talking or a loud conversation, even a fire truck, stuff like that are kind of triggers to me that turn around or stop and wait and see what happens. Hopefully I can get an unexpected image that's unfolding and walk away with a really good image on that outing. So that's what I've learned, that, or at least that's what I'm learning from this book and his style of imagery and his caption there on why he goes out the door and what what his expectations are when he goes out and he shoots. So there you go. I am representing San Francisco again with Mr. Alex Webb, and this is his book, Dislocations, and I think it's definitely one you can add to your library if you are getting one going. So that's what, 11 books, 11 artists I've talked about. So if you guys are looking into those, you can have a nice little photography book, street photography book library going for you right now, like I do. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic as I go through my list here, and we're going to the next section on gear. So as I read this, it's always interesting to me with gear, and I always give kind of a breath or a second thought on gear, because when it comes to street photography gear, there's so many directions you can go, right? So when I look at what I wrote here, one of the things that I recently did, as per the last time I talked, right, I said, hey, I got a lot of gear over here. You know, I got a lot of gear I'm not using anymore. I've been shooting Fuji gear primarily for a number of years, and it's done very well for me. I shoot X mount, I shoot GFX mount, I've made money, I've done personal projects, I've done a number of things with both mounts. But as I've progressed in my photographic journey, the type of things that I shoot for pay has changed. The type of things that I shot for fun, especially family related stuff, also has changed, which then means the type of tools, so I'm not going to say gear, the type of tools that I need have changed. And it gets to a point where you have this gear that's sitting on the shelf, in my case, some of it for years, and I'm not using it anymore and don't foresee I will use it. And again, it's already been on the shelf for over, in my case, some of them 2 years without being used. So what do you do? What's the next thing you do? What's the next piece of gear you get, right? Now, I, in this particular instance, decided that I needed to offload some stuff. It didn't make no sense having gear sitting on the shelf, ain't doing nothing for me. The business side of photography was talking to me and talking loud. Said, hey, you could do something else with that. You know, that's just money sitting on the shelf over there. So I recently did let go a lot of gear, from lenses to some camera bodies. It was not just Fuji, it was some Nikon stuff, it was some film stuff, it was some GFX lens that I stopped using as well, and used that money elsewhere. Am doing other things with that money, and specifically as it relates to my photography business side that I want to do more stuff with and grow more, and some other things. So what made me decide to keep what I had though was, one, what am I doing business wise, right? What do I need for that? What gear am I using for that? And what do I need to keep based on the stuff that I'm being paid to shoot with, or being paid to shoot for, I should say. Then the other aspect was, well, what do I want to use personally for travel, for day to day? You know, I've recently on my YouTube channel talked about high megapixel premium cameras or EDC camera and so forth. And so I wanted to look at that and say, what am I keeping? Now, obviously, I still have my XH2S, and I don't see myself getting rid of that. I love this camera for what it does for me and what I can do with it, especially with the YouTube stuff and some other things. And I kept some lenses with that. I definitely kept my XH, or I should say X100-6, and those have become, especially the X100-6, my one of my EDC cameras and travel camera and so forth, along with the XH2S as well. And then of course, you know, I had some film cameras. And then I looked at it and said, okay, but how do I know exactly what I should keep for each specific thing, whether it's the work related stuff, whether it's personal or travel? And honestly, guys, if you haven't done this and you feel you need to, one of the biggest factors for me was, well, what are the most recent images I've taken are telling me? And when I say recent, I'm not talking within the past month. That's not enough time. In the past 2 to 3 years, I looked at my images and said, what am I using? What focal length am I using? What's the type of work that I'm using? What do I truly need when I'm doing the business stuff? And what do I truly need when it's personal travel and things like that? That actually was the big determining factor in what I kept and where I actually plan on going next. Okay. So, what do you guys do? What do you think you should do if you're in the same predicament? What else would you do? Would you look at, hey, should I try something new? You know, based on what that information is telling me? Because, you know, in Capture One and definitely in Lightroom Classic, you can see what your focal lengths are. You can see what cameras you're using and for what, whether it's personal or travel. So what do you guys think? What are you using to determine what you should keep and determine what you should get next? You know, for me, I'm letting I tend to be data driven at the main job. I'm letting the data, in this case, the images that I'm taking, I'm letting that determine what I should keep based on whether it's business related work I'm doing or whether it's non-business, travel, play, fun, and so forth, EDC. And I think I did a good job. I got rid of a lot of gear. So that was, I didn't realize I had so many lenses that were just sitting on my shelf that I had not touched in 3 years. And I was impressed that that it was there. I didn't really look at it until I dug into it. Now I will admit, getting rid of gear is never fun because you're never going to get what you think you're going to get. You may be surprised, but a lot of times you're not. So what do you guys think? Just let me know in the comments. And I'd like to definitely hear if you too have been thinking about where you are in your photography gear, especially when it comes to street. So with all that said, you know, it really helped me hone down what I plan to use going forward with my street gear. Definitely using, you know, kind of a all-in-one scenario. I mean, I'm looking at, and I gotta be honest with you guys, I will say the Leica Q3 has really sparked my interest. The Leica Q line, having a premium camera with a fixed lens on it, you know, with the X100 series that I've had since the X100F has really kind of pushed me in the direction of having that as my EDC everyday travel camera, and then having maybe another camera that's interchangeable lenses to do some other things with, which is what the XH2S is going to be. So where are you guys at? Let me know. As we go into the next topic, the final topic, which is Q&A. Now, I tend to try my best to ask questions that I think, again, will get you guys thinking about street photography in different ways, topics about street photography in different ways, and kind of out of the box and get your mind going. So one of the things that I don't hear too often But I do say, when I am talking to folks about street photography, and when I did teach street photography workshops to get people into the genre, comfortable with it, what gear they need to use and things like that, I often tell people this. And so I'm gonna pose the question is this: how can street photography help you in your other photography genres? So what do I mean by that? Literally that. How do you, or have you looked at how you do your street photography and the skills that it works on and improves on for you, and how they transfer over into, say, portrait photography, flash photography, landscape photography, auto racing photography, event photography, where you're shooting music events or you're shooting weddings and things like that. I feel that what you learn, the skills you learn about your gear, will help you in other photography genres. But people, I think, oftentimes underestimate how much street photography skills help you in your other photography genre aspirations, we'll say. And one of them is definitely the skill aspect. Because street photography, you have to know your camera to be able to capture decisive moments. You have to know your camera well enough so that it is not an hindrance to you capturing an image. You got to know how do you have it set up? What are you using for your ISO if you want to change it? Or maybe you're using auto ISO. What are you using for compensation? What button am I using, or slider, or whatever, short menu, whatever. You got to know whether you're going to use autofocus, not autofocus, but excuse me, aperture. Are you using auto aperture? Are you using full auto, just so you want to get the image, and then later you go back and you really push into manual. But how do you know how much you know your camera? How well, I should say, you know your camera, and how to operate it, what the buttons you have programmed to do, what you want them to do based on the scene, based on the scenario. Maybe you're shooting on an overcast day and you want to have your auto ISO, if it has an option to give you 3 different auto ISO settings, and you want to set it to 6400 because you want to maximize the amount of light sensitivity. You know that your camera system starts to get a little muddy on its images and introduce more noise after 6400 ISO. So you say, okay, I don't want to go no higher than that. So even on the cloudy day, this is the highest I'm going to go. On a super bright day where you can put your camera at the base ISO that it'll get to, whether that's 100, whether that's 60, whether that's 100, 200, or 1, we'll say 20 or 80, I think it is. But you have to learn these things about your gear and know what your gear capabilities are. And that transfers over into other things that you do. Because me knowing how to use my camera as if it's part of my hand for street photography means that skill set, that energy, that time I put into setting that camera up, means I can do the same thing and give landscape photography the setup it needs. One of the things I like about the cameras now, most brands, you can set up different shooting profiles for that camera. So I have like we'll say for the Nikon, depending on which one you get, the level that you get, you have shooting banks, and you have photo banks, and each bank can be set up to shoot different styles of photography to make it easier for you to switch that camera to the type of photography you're shooting at the time, so that your camera's not in the way, right? I do that with street photography. When I go from shooting in the street to shooting in the studio, from my X100 to my GFX, I have the cameras kind of set up similarly, and auto ISO and everything. But I know that camera being set up similarly, or even using the same camera, because I've used my X100 in the studio to shoot with, I know how it's set up, and I know what to switch, what each button is going to do for me, and it makes the camera a non-issue, and pretty much giving more of my attention to my client or the subject, whether that's a model or a client, whatever, right? That knowledge of my gear and that knowledge of the exposure triangle that I really need to have ingrained in my brain, where it passes over to the other photography genres passes over to, let's say I did architectural photography, use of light, how the light shadows are, using the right lens and the right focal length. Astrophotography, same thing, knowing about f-stops and knowing what an f-stop is going to do for me. Learning different genres of photography will definitely help you in others, but in street, because you cover so much because of the scene changes and the scenes that you're shooting in, I feel definitely street is one of those photographic genres that trains you to be excellent in the other ones, because of what you have to learn about your gear and about photography in itself, the basics, the exposure triangle, shooting in different lighting and so forth, transfers over to those other genres. So what do you guys think? What do you think? Let me know, how does street photography help you in your other photography genres? For me, it's helped me a lot in understanding lighting, for sure. Going out on a bright day and why my camera is shooting at such a low ISO, base ISO. Oh, that's right, because I can. 1 and 2 base ISO gets me the least amount of noise and the best quality image I can get when it comes to noise, right? Shutter, knowing that I want to freeze time or not. Aperture, how much of the scene I want to be sharp or in focus or not, so that's those things that I've learned with playing with my camera and then setting them up for street photography use, that I've been able to go into, like I said, shooting in the studio, doing portrait work, shooting at music events with crazy lighting has helped me to be able to set my camera up to shoot in those environments, looking at the lighting, looking at the scene, looking at what my camera's telling me, the exposure and stuff and things like that. So let me know, guys. Let me know what you think. So that's the cast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the topics we've gone over. Let me know again. I'll keep saying that, what you think about it and your thoughts around it. Hit me in the comments on the YouTube channel that this will be coming out on, or hit me in my Instagram, if you're listening to this again on one of the podcast outlets that I feed to. Thanks again, guys, for an opportunity to provide you some entertainment, and I'll see you guys on the next cast.